Well, people, earlier I created a video on the late Lindsey Graham. I touched on his life, and I also touched on the life and times of Charlie Kirk. Sandwiched in between that, I spoke of various leaders who had the potentiality to lead this country. Well, I had some lunch and I went back into my comment section, of which many of you all responded, and I appreciate that. It's not oftentimes I have enough time to kind of research and reflect and then check out the remarks. That one particular video that I created is, today we say goodbye to the other half of the dream team, Lindsey Graham. I want to share with you a response from someone and then my response. Before I do that, let's hear what President Trump said about Lindsey Graham.
Yet, while he was always quick to laugh, no one ever doubted the gravity of his mission. Above all, Lindsey Graham believed in a strong America. Wanted a strong America. He had unwavering faith in the righteousness of American power and prayer. He was extremely hawkish. I will tell you, he never saw a war that he didn't like. Only his true friends would understand that, but he wanted it for the good of our country. He felt
I had to take issue with that statement. That Lindsey Graham never saw a war he didn't like. Only his colleagues or those close to him would understand. People, this is the complicated part about America that isn't given enough attention to detail. We many times look at those who are in powerful positions, that what they have to say is gospel. To say that Lindsey Graham never saw a war he didn't like, let's play it again, because I don't want any confusion about this.
Scott,
This woman in Kansas.
a great gentleman in his own right, I can tell you, invited him to prayer breakfast at 8:30 a.m. Lindsey told him, Tim, if Jesus himself comes back before 10 a.m., I ain't going. Yet, while he was always quick to laugh, no one ever doubted the gravity of his mission. Above all, Lindsey Graham believed in a strong America. Wanted a strong America. He had unwavering faith in the righteousness of American power and prayer. He was extremely hawkish. I will tell you, he never saw a war that he didn't like. Only his...
You can't say that about a person. Don't know what Trump was thinking, but he's not selling that to me. I'll come back to that. I looked at some dates of history in relation to Lindsey Graham and the day he died. When you look at the day that Britain burned down America, listen to this.
In 1814, during the War of 1812, British forces marched straight into Washington, D.C. And what did they do? They torched the White House. President James Madison had already fled. First Lady Dolly Madison saved a portrait of George Washington, but that was all. The British entered, dined on the president's abandoned dinner, and then set the place ablaze. It wasn't just the White House. They burned the Capitol, the Treasury, even the Library of Congress. Why? Retaliation. Just weeks earlier, American troops had burned the Canadian city of York, modern-day Toronto. So the British brought fire right back to America's capital. A freak thunderstorm helped douse the flames, possibly saving more of the city. But the damage? done.
I've said many a time that when I reflect on that moment, when Britain burned down the White House, that the British are coming again in a different form. It's the Iranian war that the powers are creating. That was August 24th of 1814. Look at that date. And look at the day that Lindsay died, July 11, 2026. 211 days ago, and 322. 322 is Skull and Bones. 46, JFK, George Floyd, George Orwell died at 46. 1018 is like Luke 10:18. I beheld Satan, Jesus said, being thrown out of heaven. History many times speaks in relation or for the present day. I submit to you, even though Donald J. Trump said Lindsey Graham never saw a war he didn't like. People, Trump talking about himself. In my humble opinion, allegedly he's fighting a war which allows the New World Order to flourish with their aims and objectives. And the death of Lindsey Graham, to me, is bringing that crystal clear. When King Charles was here between April 27th and April 30th, to me that was a sign. You see, because April 27th, King Charles was here, Washington, D.C. July 11th, Lindsay died. 75 days. The 75th day of the year is 3/16, like March 16th, like John 3:16, Jesus, hallelujah, died for our sins. Again, many times history speaks to the present. Trump was reportedly the last person to talk to Lindsey Graham. Again, President Trump reportedly was the last person that was on the phone with Lindsey Graham. And Mitch McConnell, I pointed out, went into the hospital on Trump's birthday on June 14th, of which he's still there. I believe that atmosphere and that moment speaks to the now. I wrote out a few things, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Number 1 says November 5th, where Donald Trump won the White House against, when he was challenged against Kamala Harris. Subtract that from the date of Lindsey Graham, you get 614 days. Look at number 1. Look at my fingers. Look at number 1. What does it say? 11/5/2024, Trump won election. 7/11, Graham died. 614 days. That's Trump's birthday. Number 2, June 22nd, 2025, Operation Midnight Hammer, we bombed Iran. Subtracted from the day that Lindsey Graham died is 55 weeks. That's number 2. Look at my fingers. Number 2. 6/22/2025, we bombed Iran. 7/11, Lindsey Graham died. 55 weeks. Julius Caesar died at 55 years old. Number 3, and someone put this in the chat, Lindsey Graham's funeral is 45 days before 9/11. Look at my finger, number 3. Lindsey Graham's funeral is 45 days before 9/11. 45 days before 9/11. And Trump's the 45th president. Is history speaking? I believe it is. That's why I did the video this morning. I want you guys to think. The powers got their hands in this time machine. And then if you take the day that Lindsay died, subtracted from the date of birth of his dad, you get 117 years and Trump's birthday. There it is, 7/11/2026, Lindsay's death. December 28th, 1908, Lindsey Graham's dad's birthday. 117 years, June 14th, 6/14, that's Trump's birthday. Numbers will speak when many times someone can get up and hold a microphone before a crowd. Numbers can speak more clearly than someone at a eulogy. You read between the lines as the alarm sounds and goes past. I said in my last video that the powers took out Charlie Kirk. He was the VP to Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham was the president. In the spirit realm, they were merging and emerging. That if we had this type of talk with credible organizations behind them and a more informed population, we would not be at a funeral today. We would be celebrating the progress of America with Charlie Kirk as VP and Lindsey Graham as president. Now let me read to you at Jim Smith 9311. This is what he pinned down. He pinned that down in my last video. My wonderful friend and brother Blue, you are so right on this video. I honestly don't know of anyone else who's ever expressed more truth about recent events and the theft of the America we could have become. Just when we started to finally go forward after the disgusting, horrific WW2, then the 1960s assassination of John and Martin and Bobby, and then the disgusting LBJ money-making war in Vietnam, and then the blank traitor. You read about what president he's talking about. After 9/11, horror attack on New York, when blank stole all the bullion in the supposed cleanup in trucks. I responded, yes, it takes people our age and people who appreciate history to unravel when these things transpire. I forgot to mention Biden's $8 trillion to our debt, and also to bring out more than LBJ's 5 years plus fiasco of Vietnam reverberates in the minds, hearts, and soul of America and the globe. While I'm on that, what I did, I showed a video of Lyndon B. Johnson, who came right after JFK's assassination. And as he was running for president against then Arizona Senator Barry Goldwater, he ran a campaign commercial of a child, a little girl, in America in a forest-like setting, and all of a sudden behind her there's a mushroom cloud labeling Goldwater as a warmonger and someone who would blow up the world. And then once that defeat came in to Goldwater, LBJ had about 5 years of Vietnam. This is what I'm talking about, and this is what this gentleman is talking about. A stolen country. We've been robbed so much of our potentiality and progress. And again, I'm going to say it again. These people that I mentioned in these organizations, I'm not saying they were 100% right, nor am I saying any of them were morally always right either. If you do your history, you find out about the alleged financial dealings and misappropriations of Jesse Jackson. It's in a few books. The most famous one is called Shakedown. Just put in Jesse Jackson Shakedown. My mother was a part of Operation Push, and she went to the media on Jesse Jackson about that same subject. Did you hear what I just said? I reported it before, it's nothing new. My mother, who worked for Operation Push, she went to the press right here in Chicago. I believe she went on Channel 2 News with Walter Jacobson. They called him Skippy because he used to be a bad boy for Chicago Cubs. Walter Jacobson, Channel 2 News back in the day. And also Carol Marine. I forgot what station she was with. My mom interviewed with both of them, I believe, if my mind served me right, to quote unquote expose allegedly Jesse Jackson and his misappropriation of funds. During that period, Jesse Jackson stopped working at Operation Push as president. He went to Washington, D.C. and Atlanta. Then he wound up coming back. He changed the name from Operation Push to Rainbow Coalition. That's all I'm gonna say about it. When I asked about the New World Order with certain religious people who were close to Jesse, and these are reverends and faith people, when Jesse started talking about the New World Order, which you guys have seen my documentation, I did about 4 or 5 articles about the New World Order. When I asked them about it, lips were sealed. That was my understanding at that point, that just because I'm black and I'm relating to black people, and I ask about this thing about the New World Order, it doesn't necessarily mean that black people who preach the gospel, or anybody for that matter, but I'm just telling you my experience, it doesn't mean that black people who preach the gospel are necessarily going to reveal this worldwide push toward the New World Order. And I did ask very profound ministers and people that I knew over the years, and I told them what I believe the New World Order was about. And when I asked them the question, they wouldn't talk. So no one can tell me that power of any color, especially my color, when I speak on that thing back in the day. But now, everybody's talking about that and Illuminati. Make it make sense. I wrote down here, I slept this morning thinking about this video and cried as I pinned it down. I came to realize in the past, so I started telling people America was never made for us. It just had its moments of shining lights, hindered by the same globalists who tried to take us over in the 1930s. They're back during this administration, but if you don't know enough of history, it's harder to see how they're doing it again. And not just Reverend Jesse Jackson, it was questioned about his financial deals. It also was questioned about his affairs, of which now everybody knows that he had a baby out of wedlock. But he wasn't the only one, and he wasn't the only one who had rumors, white and black, that I knew as a reporter. And I would only report on, again, the New World Order. I just don't get into that TMZ type reported. I just don't. Every now and then I'll do a story, but that's just not the way I'm built. Now, let me go a little bit deeper here. America went from the Vietnam War Then we segue into allowing drugs to come to America. I've done a lot of videos on that. South Central LA, you guys know about that. Under the Reagan administration, I'm just going to say allegedly, they allowed our international government, you can connect the dots, to bring drugs to America. And it went into black and brown communities. Then they took that money and put it back overseas to use that money to buy weapons. That's what was told to us. You can go and do the history on Ronald Reagan. It's right there. A guy named Gary Webb broke the story. Look up Gary Webb. You'll find out that they say he unalived it. He unalived himself. He had 2 slugs in his head. So I've always asked the question, how can you unalive yourself and 2 slugs in your head? But that was the reporter who broke the story on the Contra scandal. Look it up if you don't know about it. There's a whole lot of history in America that this gentleman's talking about, that I'm talking about, that every time we tried to rebuild the country and make it great again, the devils did something. Vietnam, then they allowed drugs to come over here. When Dr. King got off track, so to speak, and went against the Vietnam War, in my humble opinion, that's a major reason why they took him out. I won't get into the Kennedy thing, but you've heard about the affairs of Kennedy and Bobby, allegedly with Marilyn Monroe. The point I'm trying to make is this. Let me go down the road here. And that doesn't mean that these things didn't happen. I just want you to understand how this thing rolled out. They're back doing this administration. That is, the powers who tried to take over America in the 1930s, those big businesses who tried to take America through the decorated soldier, Smedley Butler, that I reported, they're back, in my humble opinion, in this administration. The business people are really the ones running America and the world. That's the way I feel about it. They're back during this administration, but if you don't know enough of history, it's harder to see how they're doing it again. God bless even Dr. King, who was a Boule, I believe, came to realize in spirit the Vietnam War had to stop. So that is a big reason. Like I said, I do believe they took him out because he didn't stay in his lane. Every great leader of America either was crucified, blackballed, sexually shamed, organization riddled with scandal, or compromise. Whether it was Jim Baker or PTL Club, Jimmy Swaggart or Jesse Jackson, questionable financial scandal, all in my opinion became infiltrated or succumbed to temptation, to the collapse in the public, like in the media. So to be non-effective fighting against the New World Order. So let's take, for example, I think a lot of you guys know about Jim Baker and the PTL Club. They said he was doing bad things with money. They say he cheated on his wife. Any major person from the 60s till now, they usually have these things that come up. A scandal, blackballed, unalive, sexually shamed, money scandal, something. Now, does that mean all these people were 100% right, 100% true and living right? No. What it means is that they got involved in stuff. They did some freaky stuff. Some of them, they're on tape. They got bribed. And some of them just outright got in too much temptation with a woman and got caught in a hotel. When you put it all together, once you X out all these organizations and people who were quote unquote great for America, when you get them out the way, at the same time, international groups are taking over and pac-manning governments around the world, taking their resources. So overseas, the New World Order is progressing, taking over countries which would not cooperate with the New World Order. But right here at home, people who could have countered this thing were falling by the wayside left and right. Do you understand? While the New World Order on our shores was progressing through puppet presidents and a puppet Congress. I hope you understand what I just said to you. This is what happened. Leaders that came up, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, who could have kept America flourishing the right way. Boom. Those who were for the New World Order, zoop. And the same thing happened overseas. That's my perspective because I lived during this time and I saw it. I've been reporting on it ever since. And many of these groups were infiltrated as well. The groups here in America, and even pastors were infiltrated. That's it, people. Just want to give another perspective. I pray you guys understand how we got in this position. Thank God for Jesus, and now we understand not only did Jesus save us through his precious blood, he's going to rescue us from the 666 orchestrated hell they're about to unleash on the planet. It's called the New World Order. And I'm not just picking on black people when I said this about Reverend Jesse Jackson, because I talked to other people of other races who didn't want to talk about the New World Order either then when I was a reporter. But now everybody's talking about it. It don't matter. They got it all set up. And if you want to check out a good book, there's one guy, what's his name? Name of his book is Economic Hitman. Tales of an Economic Hitman. Let me look it up for you. Book, Tales of an Economic Hitman. Check this out. Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Read this book, you'll understand also how we got into this mess. Because this guy worked for our government. And he would go over there with a boatload of money in different countries and make them an offer. Give me your country, give me your government, we're gonna take your resources, and you as a leader, disappear, or we're gonna snuff you out. Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Read it. You'll understand what I'm talking about. We a great country, but the sin won in the end. God bless.